And President Biden proposing sweeping changes to the Supreme Court as Vice President Kamala Harris also getting on board. But Republicans warn it could erode the rule of law. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent, Iris Tao, who's outside of the Supreme Court. Good evening, Iris. So what exactly is President Biden seeking to change?
Good evening to you, Steve. So in an op-ed in the Washington Post today, President Biden is proposing 3 sweeping changes. First, he wants an 18-year term limit to all the Supreme Court justices, which would ensure that these justices are turned over within a regular time. And also, Biden says, quote, that will reduce the chance that any single presidency radically alters the makeup of the court for generations. And second, President Biden suggests that there should be a binding, enforceable ethics code for the High Court. And third, the president wants a constitutional amendment that would prohibit blanket immunity for presidents. And now President Biden is set to give a speech about these proposals that he's making in Texas. Meanwhile, that's coming in just a few moments. He also commented on it earlier today and also during his address to the nation 2 weeks ago when he announced that he's not running for re-election.
How would you like to reform the Supreme Court?
I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy, Supreme Court reform.
And Biden's latest proposal come after a slew of Supreme Court rulings that were very major, including the ones overturning Roe versus Wade, also ending affirmative action in college admissions, and just recently granting former President Trump broad immunity when it comes to his official acts while in office. And today, the White House said this about what directly prompted President Biden to make these calls. Watch.
And certainly, the Supreme Court's ruling this past month, I think, would probably say, in terms of say maybe an immediate cause.
And in his op-ed today, President Biden says he has great respect for separation of powers. But, quote, what is happening right now is not normal, adding that it undermines the public's confidence in the court's decisions. And Vice President Kamala Harris today also said she's fully on board with Biden's calls, adding that these changes will strengthen democracy. But Republicans are strongly criticizing President Biden's calls, with Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, calling it a dangerous gambit, adding that the plan would erode the rule of law. He also made clear that Biden's plan will be, quote, dead on arrival in the House with a Republican majority. Back to you, Steve.
Certainly a hot-button issue likely to get the attention of both parties. It sounds like there's some protesting going on behind you, Iris. What are they in favor of, if you could kind of shed some light on that? And how likely is it that Biden's proposal actually becomes law?
Well, actually, the chances are very slim, if not even non-existent. We know that both proposals for a term limit and also for ethics code would require 60 votes in the Senate to pass. But right now, Democrats only have 51 seats, and that's very unlikely to change drastically even in the next election. I mean, while the other proposals that Biden is making with regard to the constitutional amendment will be even more difficult to become true, as it would require 2/3 of approval in both chambers, both the House and the Senate. So while Biden is making this push, it's likely more like an election year messaging push than an actual legislative imperative. Steve.
NTD's Iris Tao reporting live from the Supreme Court. Thank you, Iris. And we're just 99 days away from the presidential election. This follows a historic and certainly unpredictable month on the campaign trail. Today, Governors Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania and Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan are campaigning on behalf of the 2024 now Democratic presidential candidate and Vice President Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley is at the White House with the latest on the race.
We're now less than 100 days away from Election Day, and there's still so much more to look forward to. This week, delegates will vote to elect Vice President Kamala Harris as their nominee for the Democratic Party. Convention delegates will vote with an electronic ballot, and they're expected to nominate her and a VP candidate by August 7th. That's ahead of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in mid-August. Now, Harris is expected to announce a VP pick in early August, and among the many likely candidates are Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. One focus of the Harris campaign has been to reach out to younger voters. Watch.
In 2020, it was young voters who turned out in record numbers and elected Joe Biden President of the United States and me, the first woman elected Vice President of the United States. Because young voters showed up, We have made so much progress, historic progress, on everything from gun violence prevention to taking on the climate crisis.
Over the weekend, former President Trump and J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio, held a rally in St. Cloud, Michigan. Much of the focus was on cracking down on illegal immigration and protecting the right to bear arms.
And I will fully uphold our Second Amendment, which, as you know, is under siege. As you know, I got the full and total support of the NRA. They totally endorse me and support me, but it is under siege, our Second Amendment, and nothing happened with us. We kept it, and we will keep it.
And this week, Harris and Trump will hold campaign rallies in some critical swing states. And what we have to look forward to as we lean into November is potential presidential debates between Harris and Trump and their running mates. Reporting from the White House, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
That was NTD's Jack Bradley reporting from the White House. In the meantime, the local SWAT team on the ground at the Pennsylvania rally where former President Trump was shot speaks out for the first time following the attempted assassination. The officers described a lack of communication with Secret Service. And on Sunday's Good Morning America, lead sharpshooter Jason Wood said, "We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service members whenever they arrived, and that never happened." The officers said they did what they could to prevent the attack and now have to live with that failure. The Beaver County SWAT team early on identified the gunman as suspicious and even took a photo of him. The FBI said that the gunman had engaged in careful planning ahead of that rally, mostly through online research. The gunman had also used a drone to scope out the venue. Trump announced that he will soon speak at the FBI for a victim interview, but its timing not yet confirmed. As for Congress's investigation, House leaders announcing the new bipartisan task force with 7 Republicans and 6 Democrats. They'll have a full subpoena power to get to the bottom of those security failures. Its findings will be made public in a report no later than December 13th. And tomorrow, the acting Secret Service director is coming to Capitol Hill to testify alongside the FBI deputy director. And over the weekend, a rocket attack in northern Israel, killing 12 children and teenagers on a soccer field. Israel vowing to retaliate against Hezbollah, creating uncertainty for the future of Lebanon. NTD's Jason Perry has that story.
On Saturday, as sirens sounded in northern Israel, the resident holding this camera scrambled to see what triggered the alarm when he saw an explosion in the distance. Then other residents came out to see what happened. The rocket hit a soccer field, killing 12 children and teenagers. The Israel Defense Forces, or the IDF, said Hezbollah was responsible for the strike, and markings on the remnants of the rocket used in the attack indicate that it was likely made in Iran.
It's an awful tragedy, innocent boys and girls. It's just heartbreaking. I told you, Hezbollah is responsible and it will pay a price.
And on Monday, flights to and from the capital of Lebanon have been canceled or delayed amid fears of an Israeli attack. Meanwhile, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan appeared to threaten that Turkey could join the war against Israel.
Just like we entered Karabakh, just like we entered Libya, we might do similar to them. There is no reason why we cannot do this. We must be strong so that we can take these steps.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the U.S. stands by Israel's right to defend its citizens from terrorist attacks, and he added this.
We also don't want to see the conflict escalate. We don't want to see it spread. That has been one of our goals from day one, from October 7th on.
The U.S. Embassy in Beirut warned American citizens in Lebanon to plan to leave before a crisis begins or be prepared to shelter in place for an extended period of time. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.